and welcome back to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, the part-time Avenger, and with me is Mark, the resident Jedi.
Hello there. So today we're continuing number 3 for our August retro rewind approach to our podcast, and we've moved on to the 90s. And we picked a few 90s movies. This was a hell of a debate because we've watched a ton of movies from the 90s over the time. So we tried to pick some things that were representative of that era, and some things that were a little off base. We took one from each, but the first movie we're going to talk about today, I don't want to. It wasn't somebody's specific pick. It was more Dan brought it up, and I was like, yeah, because that person really defined the decade of the 90s in a big bad way. So first movie we're going to talk about is Quentin Tarantino's second movie, Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. I mean, you can't think of the 90s without thinking Quentin Tarantino and that particular movie. I don't know how many people bought that soundtrack. All the different references, everyone calling burgers Royale with cheese and stuff like that. There's so many awesome nuggets and, really great dialogue. And it's one of those movies that I felt like, okay, we can't do a 90s episode without talking about this. But let's talk about Quentin Tarantino a little bit, just because, what was your origin with him and your exposure to his movies?
I'm a huge Tarantino fan. I will watch anything Tarantino does. I think that it comes from our mutual love of having both worked in a video store. That Tarantino's definitely, on my top 5 directors list too. So talking about this movie, I'm super excited. What about you, Dan?
This was my first exposure to it, and funny enough, it was a childhood friend of mine that got me into the movie first. So I had heard the soundtrack prior to watching the movie, and I was over at my buddy's house. It's very clear. Pablo, if you're listening to this podcast, I remember playing basketball in your driveway, and your brother cranked on the first track of the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, which is the pumpkin and honey bunny going right into Dick Dale's Miserlou. And I'd never heard it before. I was like, holy shit, that's like the coolest intro to anything. What is that from? And so he's like, oh, that's Pulp Fiction, man. You have to watch it. So sure enough, I rented that movie, watched it, and I think it was just because of the fact that it was so clever and there's so many inside jokes and references that I would do with my friends regarding that movie that it was just like, yeah, this is freaking amazing. And so I think my very first Tarantino interest was very superficial. I don't even think it was really real, as so much that I just wanted to have something to bond with my friends over. So it was one of those things that I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. And every time you watch that movie, there's something additional that you will pick up. And that's what I like about his movies. This isn't even my favorite movie of his, but I freaking love it. It's awesome. There are some shortcomings to it, but at the same time, we'll get into a little bit of that. But yeah, Quentin Tarantino started with Pulp Fiction, went off to Reservoir Dogs, and kind of went down the gamut of everything after that.
I think it's funny that you mention the soundtrack, because this soundtrack did something that a lot of 90s soundtracks started to do. And I know that like Kevin Smith did it with like Mallrats and things like that, but they put clips of the movie into the soundtrack, which isn't super common and isn't common anymore, right? I just remember like the Jay and Silent Bob soundtrack having that in there, and the Mallrats soundtrack and Pulp Fiction. That's a good call out. This might have been one of the most Napstered albums out there, solely for some of the quotes in it, right? But no, I dig that. I dig it. What strikes you about like the open of this movie when you're first watching it, or you're watching it again?
it's just the curiosity as to like what the fuck are they talking about and why are they talking so much. That to me, that was like an interesting thing because at the time I watched it, I think I was in maybe 6th or 7th grade.
Whoa.
Maybe even fifth grade going into 6th grade. I can't remember. And so that's the first time I watched it. And so it was like one of those things where I'm used to action, getting to the point, comedic movies, getting to the point, um, not very character driven stories or dialogue driven stories. So this is where I expect a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I just get thrust right into this fucking stick up. It's like, hey, everybody cool. This is or everybody be cool. This is a robbery, right? This is what I'm just pushed into. And so that Dick Dale Miserlou song hits hard. And so I was like, wow, I don't know what I'm in for, but I'm in for a ride. So it's one of those things that it's just the dialogue to me is obviously a Tarantino staple, but it was something that was very different to me as a person who had watched plenty of movies and plenty of movies that I probably shouldn't have watched at the ages that I've watched them. This one still was very uh, shaping of my youth into my adulthood for sure.
You at least knew how to administer an adrenaline needle.
That, and I didn't realize that you suck a little bit of blood out first when you're shooting heroin. I don't know. I guess that's how you do it.
I don't know how to shoot
I don't
heroin.
know.
I don't know. But so how did you feel about the fact that you watched like towards the end of the movie, at the beginning of the movie, and the cut ups that Tarantino does? Since we're on the Tarantino subject, how did you feel about experiencing for the first time this ADD all over the place, jumble it up, don't reveal anything till you reveal something style that has now become a staple?
I didn't understand it. I just thought it was cool because it was something that my friends and I could, I just liked the clips, the phrases, the music. That's what I liked. I wouldn't even say that I really liked the storyline of the movie. I'm sure I didn't get it at 6th grade. So it was just one of those things where it's like it was confusion, but oh, I guess it's cool. Like this is something that should be appreciated. But I wasn't really far into saying that like, yeah, I like the cinematography of the movie. I like the way of the flow. I liked how it goes back and forth. Like, throw that shit out the window. I was just liking the fact that, wow, this bitch says, if any of you fucking pricks move, I'm going to execute every last motherfucking one of you. And so that's what I liked about it. It wasn't the nuts and bolts, this makes sense type of movie for me. What about you? What did you
I
think about
love
when you
it.
first watched it?
I as a person who like used to read those books that like jump around to multiple places as a kid, and like the fact that I'm
Are you talking about the choose your own adventure
oh yeah, I
story?
chose my own adventure all the time.
This is
Um,
not like that at all. But
well, but either way, like I just like the challenge of putting together the puzzle a little bit, and that's what Tarantino does, right? He gives you the pieces, and you got to put them together, and that somehow spoke to me as a way to like keep my attention, and also, it's just something different, and I loved it. I do. My wife hates it.
how old were you
Hates
when you
the
saw the
back and
movie?
forth. I was probably 16 or 17. Came out in 94. So it was about 6 years after release that I saw it. I remember people talking about it, talking about Reservoir Dogs back in the day, but I think this is a movie that was kept from me for obvious reasons. I probably would have been too impressionable to view this. Honestly, the OD scene makes me uncomfortable now.
Really?
So, yeah.
I never
But
had a problem with it. It was one of those weird things, and like I'm not a big needle person. Like I'm
not the needle, just I mean, Uma Thurman plays it very well, but it's just like I'm good. I'm good. Let's get to
gotcha.
something funny.
Yeah.
or something, snappy, like not she's fucking dying,
Yeah.
Talk to me about the watch. Let's get to the watch part.
So that was probably one of the best monologues out there.
Ever. Christopher Walken at his best.
I wish. So one of my communications classes in college, it was public speaking, and one of the things is we needed to do a monologue or a speech from somewhere. And so the only thing that I could think of was the Ben Affleck monologue in Boiler Room, which I played to a T. Awesome. Got
Oh man,
an A grade for it. It was
that's
great.
funny.
But seeing this movie again recently, I was like, why the fuck did I
Didn't
not
I
do
do this?
that as the monologue?
You know what mine was? I also took a public speaking class. I did the um the why I shouldn't work for the NSA speech from Good Will Hunting.
No, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wait, you went to Northern, right?
No. I went
Oh,
to JUCO, my
okay.
friend.
All right. So for some reason, I thought that so I went to Northern
My
Illinois.
wife
For some
did.
reason, okay, that's what it was. It would have been funny if we like took the same class and
Yeah.
but anyways, so
And
interesting.
Affleck and Damon did. Yeah, no, that didn't happen. But I like where you're romanticizing in your head.
It should have been. It should have been that way. But
No.
yeah, the that monologue. Did you get it when you were that young? Did you
I
understand
wasn't
why
that
it's,
young. I
but
know
did you
why he
understand
stuck
why
it
it
up
was
his
there?
ass. Because he was in a POW camp.
Yeah. But did you
You
also find
didn't.
it did you find it funny too though is that he kind of glazes over the fact that his dad dies of dysentery, which is probably because he
He
shoved
stuck
the
the
watch up
watch
his
up his
ass.
ass.
So it's just that's one of the things I didn't get until recently. And
I wore this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass.
yeah, oh my god, so good. And
No,
Walken looks so damn young in
he
this.
does. He
You
does.
forget,
He does. He looks young.
yeah, you forget that he's really old now.
Oh,
So
and they put the exclamation on the scene because he just grabs it. Not like,
yeah,
I don't want to talk. Can I get some hand sanitizer for this watch, please? Cool.
but even the beginning to that scene, this is something else that I picked up is that the I'm assuming it's like the grandma or the mom or whoever is taking care of him is like,
Yeah.
hey Butch, remember when I said your dad died in the POW camp? Well, this guy wants to talk to you. Like, way to bring it up in a nice, smooth way. Like that was kind of funny to me. And I never picked that up before. And I was just like, this lady needs to take some classes in sensitivity training.
You wonder why Butch is a boxer and his rage is misplaced and unaligned.
Do you think it's because he had a watch that smelled like shit on his wrist for all
I
those
would hope it
years?
didn't smell like shit anymore. I would hope that he took it somewhere, didn't tell him. That was, oh man. During my small time foray in the cell phone industry, I can empathize with whatever watchmaker Butch took this thing to get cleaned, is because you wouldn't
You,
tell them that it was worn up their ass. People wouldn't tell you that they dropped their phone in the toilet, and once they did,
uh,
I would put it down, hand sanitizer, and then get like a couple plastic bags to pick it up. And they'd be like, it's not that bad. And I was like, yeah,
fuck you,
right.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fuck you, exactly. But
But
like I thought that's my favorite, one of my favorite parts of the movie.
dude, you're telling me that an 8-year-old kid took that watch to get cleaned? No fucking way. He wore that shit stained watch on his wrist, and that's why he became a boxer because all the kids were like, Butch smells
Which
like
smells
poo
like
poo.
shit.
That's the reason why he's a boxer
Shit
because
stain just knocked you out.
yeah, like everyone made fun of him. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna take all this rage out and I'm gonna join boxing club. So yeah, but
Boxing club. You went to a fucking private boys high school fucking boxing club.
we had a boxing team or boxing program where that we did that. I didn't join it, but yeah.
No, I went to public school. We didn't have a boxing club, but we had fights.
Yeah, we had fights too. Fights too. 210
Oh,
behind the hen,
man.
baby. Maris,
Whoa.
Southside Chicago represent.
That's a White Hen reference, by the way. R.I.P. White Hen.
Yes.
Best deli in convenience stores.
When you run out to White Hen.
That's it, man. Except when White Hen runs out and they're gone.
Yeah. So that scene, your favorite out of the entire movie?
I can't say it's my favorite. I mean, the Ezekiel 25:17 scene at the end and at the beginning, where he's talking to fucking flock of seagulls.
That
I
was a good
mean,
one.
Samuel L. Jackson in this movie. This might be my absolute favorite Samuel L. Jackson movie.
I would
I
say
think
that's
it
not
it's
far off.
it may not be his best from an artistic perspective, right? Like he's done better acting jobs.
Hold on. Are we really going to see a movie with Samuel Jackson because he acts
No,
really well in it?
no, but he's put on like in Hateful Eight or in Django. His performances were amazing.
Yeah, you're right.
Like in period on it, right? As Nick Fury, I enjoy him, but Jules is my dude.
He's a bad motherfucker.
That's right. That's right.
Speaking of that wallet, so that was so cool.
I've almost
And
bought that wallet so many times. So many times.
I didn't have a bad motherfucker wallet, but someone did get me a nice mother lover wallet, and I had that for the longest time, and it was a solid second place for that. So I enjoyed it.
I like it. I like
But
it.
I would say that my favorite scene would have I believe it probably has to be at the diner at the end with Vincent and Jules, where Travolta's basically just like giving him flat out shit. You know, it's like, no, Jules, you decide to be a bum. There's a word for that. You
Yeah.
know, and so like it's just one of those cool things where these guys have been buddies throughout the entire movie, right? And yeah, they get into some shit. And you most cases in a movie when friends, and I'm assuming that they're friends, right? Because they respect each other, they spend a lot of time, they bullshit a lot, but you expect the friends to not go their separate ways at the end of the movie. Now, granted, this movie's and the
But
juxtaposition is
that's
all
not
over the
the end of the
place,
movie. That's
right?
the middle of the movie.
But it really is the end of the movie because
Well,
that's indicative as to how their paths go. They decide to go off. Jules walks the earth like Kane and Kung Fu.
and Vincent gets shot on the shitter.
Yeah. And what a shitty hitman. So here's another thing too. Is Vincent Vega a shitty hitman because he leaves his automatic weapon on the kitchen counter while he goes take a shit and read a book? Is he a shitty hitman?
Yeah. Yeah, but he wasn't with his partner because his partner left him. So did
Yeah.
Vincent die because he was distracted because of what Jules had said to him, or because Jules wasn't there, or was he just a shitty hitman?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
in prison for a while, right?
He
Sounds like
was.
he was just a bad criminal altogether.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have stayed where the Royales with cheese come from.
You dig it the most. Okay. So we talked about like our favorite scenes in the movie. I think it's safe to say the most disturbing scene in the movie is when Zed brings out the gimp.
Yeah, yeah. But it does get us to one of the like, yeah, I could see that. The best progression shot in the entire movie, where he goes from pipe to bat to chainsaw to samurai sword.
But what were you thinking as a 16-year-old or 17-year-old watching that movie for the first time?
I don't think I got the gimp thing entirely until you really look at it as in like, how long has the gimp been in there?
Yeah. But wait. I'm not even talking about the Gimp character specifically. I'm talking about what's happened into Marcellus Wallace.
Oh, the Marcellus Wallace is getting fucked in the ass. Yeah,
He's getting fucked like a bitch. That's what
Does
happened.
Marcellus Wallace look like a bitch? At that point, he does.
Yeah.
He looks like he's Zed's bitch. Who's
Ugh.
Zed? Zed's dead, baby.
Dude, I was trying to understand why.
Yeah, I can see you as a young child, like, what are they doing? Are they playing?
I mean, I was 12 or 13, so like I knew what sex was. I had never seen
A
sodomy.
big black man raped by a
Yeah,
by a white nationalist.
exactly. And like it just didn't. I was like, what the fuck? This is so fucked up. But I would just like to say that as an actor, when proposed with that script, Ving Rhames just, props to him because I don't know if I could, in good faith, accept that scene in the script if I were the actor. I just don't know. Yes, it's acting, but oh man, that's rough.
I feel like most actors, and this was Tarantino's second movie. So he had already done the Reservoir Dogs, which got huge reviews and was amazing, right?
But not like a big commercial success by any means.
But it won.
So,
it won some awards.
Won some awards, but doesn't mean like a movie's a commercial success, right? But my point being is, in the 90s, as a black actor, you're willing to, and like I said, credit to Ving Rhames on it because it was the right call. You're willing to, as an actor, put yourself in a scene like that, which you and I both know that if you're put into certain scenes in movies, it could be just detrimental to your career. It could freaking take you off the rails and your career's done. Like, oh, that's the guy that got boofed by Hillbilly. Well, we're not going to put him in this movie. It's just one of those things where it was a very ballsy pick. And the fact that it was such a big movie that it didn't matter. And he still got work regularly after that.
Well, yeah, because he was in Pulp Fiction. But I think before that, like his career, like wasn't amazing. The two movies he did before Pulp Fiction were The Saint of Fort Washington, which was a Matt Dillon, Danny Glover movie.
But that's my point, though. So the fact that he didn't have a big career before and putting him in a very awkward position, literally, in this movie, that could totally fuck up your career. But it didn't.
I mean, where can it go from being in Dave and that movie? And
Not
then
working
within
at
a
all,
few
that's
years,
for sure.
Well, then within a few years, he goes into Mission Impossible, which he's still doing those movies. He
Right.
did Striptease. He
but
got
that's
a
my
regular
point,
character
is
on
that-
ER. Yeah, no, he took a risk and got a big reward.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, I mean, oh God, what an awful scene of a movie. But yet, that music. So speaking of the music again, with the Comanche song that just blares out with the saxophone and the oh my God, the growling of the saxophone, dude. I don't know of anyone that if they heard that song that they wouldn't think of that scene. Even if they've never seen the movie before, something will trigger in their DNA that'll just be like, this is from Pulp Fiction. This is from Pulp Fiction.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that any music would make people just think, man, somebody's getting butt fucked.
Like, what are you talking about? Are you serious? You call anyone that has seen that movie and you play that song and they'll probably be like, ugh.
While characters like Ving Rhames jumped out at me, I would say that the biggest box office draw actor in this movie, to me, had the least impact overall.
Bruce Willis?
Bruce Willis. Did not give a shit about that it was Bruce Willis.
I think it was interesting that he was in that movie to where he was like the big name actor, and obviously like Travolta was huge before, but
yeah, but this was his reclamation,
right?
This was his relaunch.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily care about Bruce Willis's Butch. It was all of the bit characters that stole the show,
Hmm.
right? So,
It was Samuel L. Jackson that stole the show.
well, yes, yes, but every scene that he was in, Ving Rhames outshined him. Um, Zed outshined him, and I can't remember the other guy's name that was in that scene too, where he was just sitting there having the most pleasure watching him get violated. But those people's performances are what made the scenes. It wasn't really Bruce Willis. I can't really remember a scene where I was like, I really like Bruce Willis in that scene. I don't know. You
No,
know,
he
even
kept
Rosanna Arquette
correcting. He kept
with the
correcting her about the chopper. It's a chopper.
yeah, yeah.
Shut up, Butch.
With but Fabiana is the name, I think. Oh God, I can't remember the name. Fabian.
Hmm.
Dude, the funny thing about her is she's just a simpleton, a flat out simpleton, and she's with this boxer. And so like I thought that was kind of funny how they played that off to where she's literally just like very much like a child. And she ends up crying or she ends up getting upset when Butch pushes her buttons or yells at her or something like that. And it's just very telling of like, wow, this is kind of like a bunch of kids just in adult bodies. You know, that's one of the things like and I you kind of think about that as Butch is like, you tell me what to do, I'm gonna do it, but never mind, I'm not gonna listen to you. And so his um, childish decision not to take the dive ends up getting them in trouble and just run and run and run. I mean,
Well, he knew he
obviously,
wasn't going to take the dive. He was taking the money and running. He knew he already had the plan.
right.
And then she forgot his fucking watch.
Yeah.
And then we
But
got a great monologue.
that kind of dialogue back and forth is like, you need to think really hard. Did you get the watch? He's like, yes, I did. She's like, no, I didn't. I don't know. And then she's like, "Meh," and like cries, like, oh my God, that's totally what a kid would do. I mean, my kids have done that plenty of times. So it's just so funny that he thought that, like, I'm going to ask again. And, and then he's yelling at himself in the car. Totally what, like a parent would do as well, too. It's like, I specifically told you, don't forget
I'd,
the watch.
I'd wreck that car, baby.
Oh man. And what about like um Esmeralda, the cabbie after? Just kind of a weird character. Tarantino's excellent and just having these weird characters for no reason other than to elevate that scene's weirdness.
Yeah. 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 No, he definitely picked some interesting people like Eric Stoltz to be in this movie.
Yeah, well, he was probably heartbroken that he wasn't Marty McFly. So
Yeah. I definitely agree. Like just the casting on this is so good. But it again, like the big two carry it, right? In Travolta and Jackson, but Uma Thurman, who before this, like, what was Uma Thurman really in? It shows up as amazing in this and ends up being Tarantino's muse for years to come. Um, I mean, she was she she was in a bad version of Robin Hood. Did you know this as Maid Marian?
I didn't. No.
Yeah, she was in the Patrick Bergin Robin Hood. Um, but yeah, she's been in a bunch of. She was before this in a bunch of, just randos. Nothing amazing, and then she gets this, and it just takes off for her.
I mean, you I wasn't like a huge Mia Wallace fan in this, but she's a very cool character. Like some of her back and forth on everything, and
The
and
joke,
you,
the joke for me, she nailed that, and just I was just like, okay, I get it.
but for her, um, you have this. I don't know if she's necessarily a junkie, right? She just likes to party.
Mm-hmm.
And so she thinks she hit the jackpot with a baggie of cocaine, but oh, sorry, that's the best heroin out there, and you're gonna fuck yourself up. And then it goes into that whole intense car ride and scene over at Eric Stoltz's house, and so it's just yeah, it's an interesting up and down moment because earlier in the movie when Jules and Vincent are talking about how Tony Rocky Horror fell off of a 4-story window because of his alleged relations with Mia Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
You think that something might happen with Vincent, and he's almost kind of like a moron. Vincent's kind of a moron. He's just like, you think he's cool, but then watching it again, for me, just the way that I took off of him, he's just kind of like this oaf. He's this well-traveled oaf. That's what I think of Vincent Vega.
Vincent Vega, not too smart career criminal. Needed to stay home and watch Kung Fu and then walk the earth.
So, what did you think about Harvey Keitel as the Wolf?
The Wolf was amazing. Driving up in that NSX. I'll be there in exactly 7. Like just I loved it. That scene for me, the dialogue is just so good. The dialogue from the jump, right? When oh shit, I just shot Marvin in the face. And it's not funny, but it's really funny. What do you think God came down from heaven and stopped the and if you watch that part of the movie, there's a continuity issue, right? Because the bullet holes are there before the shots happen, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
I guess I didn't pick that up.
Yeah, it's an issue with the movie. It's like a well-known issue, but it's just that whole scene then going into the storage conversation and we're not gonna have a fight. I'm gonna get divorced.
Yeah, isn't that such a weird conversation that he's on such a different page than these guys right now? He's not worried about getting convicted for accessory to murder or anything like that.
He's not worried about the coffee in his kitchen. He's worried about the issue in his garage.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. Like, yeah, he's worried about getting divorced as opposed to the manslaughter charge that he'll have or whatever it is. So, yeah, and Quentin Tarantino does a really good job of being in his movies. I think he always puts himself in his movies, but nothing to where it's too crazy. He just has enough of this edgy dialogue that makes him memorable, but it adds to the scenes. He
doesn't do it as much anymore, though. Early on, he did. Early on, he was a little vain about it, but I thought I like him as an actor. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. I like Tarantino delivering Tarantino lines. But I got to ask you a question, Danny. Are you an Oak man?
Dude, Oak is the worst. Just so you know.
Not an Oak man.
Jimmy, Quentin Tarantino's character, was like, Oak's nice. And just thinking in the back of his head, like, I would have picked cherry or some maple or something, but Oak is really the old people shit.
But it's expensive. So he's like, Oak's nice. Give him the money. You can have my shit.
Yeah.
These were a wedding gift.
True, but oh man, it's just funny that that's the case. Or you know what? He could have been like, if I say that I like or I don't like Oak, I think I might get shot. So I'm just gonna say that I like Oak.
Yeah.
It's not worth the hassle of getting divorced or getting murdered. I'm just gonna say that I want it. So
I always wondered what kind of coffee Jimmy had, because while coffee grounds make a difference, I can't see a major difference in drip coffee. Like I can't. Like it's just drip coffee to me. I know I'm preaching to the choir because you do not have a coffee opinion whatsoever, but maybe our listeners do. Maybe somebody can throw us a comment or a message or a DM or a whatever, an email or a letter. Not that we're getting an address. But you know, you can let us know if you have a specific guess on Jimmy's coffee.
All I know is that he buys it because when Bonnie buys it, she buys shit.
It's true.
So I want to talk about a duo that they open the movie and they close the movie with, and that's Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer as Pumpkin and Honey Bunny. What did you think about their dialogue back and forth? And let's be honest, on a scale of 1 to crazy, how crazy is Amanda Plummer?
Oh, super nuts. Like Mia Wallace is a school teacher compared to this woman. Like just super crazy. But how awesome is Samuel L. Jackson talking about point the gun at me? Don't point the gun at me.
So cool. The guy is so cool under pressure.
And you know, just reflecting on it, the best line in the movie might be when he's like, reach in that bag and pull out my wallet. Which one is it? The one that says bad motherfucker. And everybody's like, well, that's a cool way to say it, but then and then he pulls out and it actually says, but that's why I've almost bought that wallet so many times.
It's a good.
It's Tim Tim Roth's just chill is such a cool balance off of it, right? You could tell that he's the, you know, I don't want to say manipulator in that relationship, but he's the brains and she's the cuckoo bird. And yeah, no, it was such a. They're not in the movie much. You don't know what happens before or after, but it's just a great introduction. And then Tim Roth's in Tarentino movies forever.
Amanda Plummer is just weird in every movie that she's in, though. So I just watched So I Married an Axe Murderer, and she's in that as well too. Crazy, she's an axe murderer. But yeah, it's one of those cool.
Sorry, would you think that is the pinnacle of Amanda Plummer's career? The lead in So I Married an Axe Murderer.
These two movies for sure.
It's absolutely not on her Married an Axe Murderer, not her top 4 IMDb's.
Really?
Abigail Harm from 2012, The Fisher King from 91, which is, you know, a serious movie, and Ratched, which I think is a Netflix movie.
Yeah. Or show.
Oh, no, it's a TV series. It's a show. It's a show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
She
did a voice on Phineas and Ferb as well.
She was probably crazy on that too. But
yeah.
She does a very good job playing crazy though. So like her yelling at Jules, like, you let him go, I'm gonna throw you away. It's like, oh my God, this bitch is too much. And so
Jules, shoot her. Just shoot the bitch.
Exactly. I know I would have, like, this chick is gonna flip out, so I better shoot her now before she shoots me.
It's like, Jules, you even got some cold-blooded shit to say to a motherfucker before you pop a cap in his ass. Do it.
Which, by the way, she totally could have taken the shot and he would have been dead, you know, if she was a good shot. Assuming that, you know, in movies, you're always a good shot. She could have taken the shot, Jules would have been dead, and everything would have been fine.
And they would have got what was in the briefcase.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
yeah, what was in the briefcase? What do you think was in the briefcase?
There's so many representations and
what do you I
don't even think I have an opinion. I think
you've got to have an opinion.
I think my favorite one is it's Marcellus Wallace's soul.
Yeah, I think we've all heard that one too, and it's a good one. It's a very good theory because you got the bandage on the neck. 666 is the combination on the briefcase. Have you heard it's Elvis's gold jumpsuit?
No.
That's one that I thought that was kind of clever because he's a big Elvis fan. I think I like it's the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs theory. I really like that one. That would have been pretty cool. But doesn't make sense, but it would have been pretty cool just to connect everything together.
Yeah, I could see that.
There was supposed to be a Vincent Vega movie with the Vega brothers with Travolta and Michael Madsen, but that just never came through. But It could have been. It could have been.
Oh man, that would have been nuts. Do you know that they made a reference to this movie in The Winter Soldier?
Maybe. Which one? Which reference?
When they kill Nick Fury,
Oh yeah, yeah.
on Nick
Yep.
Fury's gravestone is engraved Ezekiel 25:17.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the things I was surprised that they put that in there, just because of the fact that like I would think that Disney would distance themselves from
I
stuff
think
like that.
Samuel L. Jackson gets what he wants.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, got a purple lightsaber for God's sake. So
That's it. That's it.
I don't even think we need to talk about the plot because the characters and the dialogue is what drives
No,
the story.
I think we've done an appropriate review of this movie by jumping all over the place, not being consistent and coherent, and just throwing in enough quotes to get us through.
What we should have done is asked each other if we can do this all day in the middle of the episode, and then at the end we talk about the beginning of everything. So
I mean, technically, this is the middle of the episode because we're
true,
talking about another movie.
So I guess so. But Mark, I think I know what you're going to say here, but can you do this movie all day?
You're gonna be surprised. I can do this movie some days.
Really?
I love it, but it's one of those movies that I watched a bunch as a background noise movie or as whatever. And other than for this podcast, I can't remember the last time I actually was like, I'm going to watch Pulp Fiction. I had it on like VHS. I'd throw it in all the time. Think I have it on DVD somewhere, but I haven't watched it. I hadn't watched it in probably, 5 to 6 years, which is, I've watched a bunch of other Tarentino stuff, but I just hadn't watched this. It's one of those that I'd watched enough to where it's here. Like I can, it'd take a minute, but I used to be able to go line for line on this movie. And yeah, it's not an everyday for me anymore.
Okay. Now, when you say not an everyday, is it just because like I don't wish to see this every day, or is it like, do you still like it? But it's like I physically cannot watch it every single day because of the content.
No, it's a nostalgic enjoy, but it's not a a continuous. It's nostalgia for me. It's not like, positive, like, yeah, I love that, or I feel refreshed after watching it or whatever. Like, I don't know why you watch
Refreshed
some
after the murder.
well, there's some movies like you feel like mentally refreshed after you just can check out and enjoy it. I can check out and enjoy this movie, but it's not one that like my brain goes to. I can't really give you a good reason why, but I can do this some days and I love it.
Would you divulge without divulging the specific movies, but could you watch any Quentin Tarantino movie all day?
That's a good question.
Okay. So we'll save that for another potential episode in the future, because I think that's something where, our rating system is a little bit different, right? So we have this notion of hey, we can either watch it all day or we can watch it some days, and I can't watch it all day because this movie sucks. But this is a movie for me that, yes, I can do this all day because of that nostalgia. If there's one thing that our listeners know, is that we are suckers for nostalgia, and me particular, if it reminds me of some childhood memory, times with friends, yeah, it's a good feeling. And yes, I will watch a movie even though there's a lot of serious content in this and it's not the brightest of feel good movies. I like the memories that come with this movie. So yeah, I can do this movie all day. Welcome back to part 2 of Retro Rewind 90s edition. Mark, why don't you tell us what movie we're doing?
After having to sit through Pulp Fiction, which admittedly is like an amazing movie, I forced Dan to sit through the classic Arnold Schwarzenegger film, Last Action Hero.
So I'm a big Arnold fan, And I just wanted to throw it out there that he is my action hero. I won't go into my thoughts on the movie just yet, but I wanted to point out, if you take a look at my hat right here, because we're doing a 90s episode, I wanted to wear this Fighting Irish hat because I don't know of any white kid that did not wear a Fighting Irish hat back in the 90s. So
Do you
all the
know
white kids
why
out there,
they
this
wore
is for you.
a Fighting Irish cap back in the 90s?
And well, because there was no other teams to root for, but they also rocked the 90s Charlotte Hornets starter jacket as well.
Yeah, my wife had a Hornets jacket that she would want mentioned in this conversation.
Was it starter?
It was starter. It was pullover, half zip, the whole deal. But you got to remember that in the 90s, Notre Dame was like knocking on the door of another national championship. They had just won one in 1988. They had a good football team, Dan.
Oh man,
They had a good football team. Sports balls.
Amazing.
Sports balls. Yeah.
Oh, you don't know football unless you know Notre Dame. Oh,
because they always lose, and it's the best. It really is. You haven't lived until you've watched Notre Dame get their butts whooped by Alabama in 3D. It's pretty great. Rendered 3D, but 3D.
Jeez, that sounds amazing, man.
It's almost as amazing as the 1993 hero vehicle Last Action Hero. So I picked this movie because as we've gone through, our retro rewinds, we had to include at least one Schwarzenegger movie. Dan tried to talk me into Commando, tried to talk me into Predator, and I'm like, no, I've got the Schwarzenegger movie for you in the 90s. The Schwarzenegger movie to absolutely end all Schwarzenegger movies.
But why would we want to pick, and really pretty much his second to last 90s action movie? Why would we want to pick that?
Why would you say second to last?
Because Eraser was his last.
I don't know if I agree with the characterizations you're making about Arnold's films.
You mean the action movie, the 1996 action movie Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No. The rest of the 90s movies that he made.
Definitely not action. Not straight up action.
Sinbad would disagree.
Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about The Sixth Day or End of Days or something with another day?
I'm talking about Jingle All the Way, the best Arnold Christmas movie of all time.
Once again, not action.
I don't know. Turbo Man flew. They defeated a bad guy. Action.
No.
You're also forgetting Batman and Robin. Action.
Comedy. Flat out comedy.
Negotiable. What about End of Days?
End of Days now.
End of Days 1999. One last action movie.
Yeah. No action. Sacrilege, maybe.
Wait. But... True Lies.
Was that after?
That was True Lies came out in 94. This came out in 93.
Okay. True Lies was amazing. So.
One of the best. It was between this and True Lies.
I would have gone with True Lies over this one.
I was like, oh, we should have talked about True Lies.
We should have.
It's got just as many like random, kind of funny, over the top quotes as this movie, but this one, I just have it just hits right for me because it's so unknown.
Yeah.
Had you seen this movie before?
All right. So background to how I saw this movie. I saw it at Rest in Peace Bremen Dollar Theaters back in Bremen Theater, Tinley Park, Illinois. I saw it there and I was so disappointed. So disappointed. Young Dan was so upset that his action hero was fiction hero in this movie. But I will say on this rewatch, maybe it's different. I don't know. Maybe.
I hope so. So I would guess that not a lot of viewers had seen this movie. Not not a lot of viewers, not a lot of watches. We know how that is. Here we could do this all day, but I think that not a lot of people saw this movie when it came out because it got sandwiched in the release schedule right like the week after Jurassic Park. So while everybody was going back to the theater to see dinosaurs, this movie was dying on the vine and was like kind of a flop.
You bring up a good point because if you recall from when I was talking about the Jurassic Park movies, I didn't want to see Jurassic Park. I'm not a dinosaur guy. I know you have like T-Rexes as like a mobile in your bedroom, but at the same time, like for me, I did not care about Jurassic Park, and I think at that time I would have watched Jurassic Park over this movie. So
Just because I know you like the soundtrack. Ma, 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 ma.
no, I don't like it. No.
So I think that there's a lot to say about this film, but the one thing I will say is it is a great spoof movie. It's a spoof movie in the vein of, and I remember reading something about this, that the writers wanted it to be more like The Simpsons than an action movie. Like the way The Simpsons is kind of a parody of a normal like TV sitcom. They wanted this to have kind of a Simpson-y flavor to it. 1993, The Simpsons are gigantic. You and I are both wearing Bart Simpson shirts. I'm assuming at some point. You didn't have any Bart Simpson toys.
Well,
but you
maybe
might
I
have
had
the
a Bart
shirt.
Simpson shirt, maybe, but it was like well into the late 90s. I think the Simpsons shirt that I had was definitely in high school. I remember it exactly now because it was like my first Simpsons shirt ever, and I was super excited. I was a freshman in high school wearing it to like band camp, and a lot of
Oh
people
man.
said like, "Hey, I like your Homer shirt," and it was Homer Simpson in the thinker pose, except it was called the drinker. So I actually like that one. It was cool.
The irony of that shirt is not lost on me. And if we could find you a new version, I think it would be even more ironic than it was when you were a freshman in high school.
Perhaps, yeah. Um, so I wish I would have known your little nugget of information. I wish the internet existed when I was younger because I probably would have read some articles about that. Um, but yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like if you wanted a parody of The Simpsons ish in an action movie, you freaking nailed it. I just wish I would have known that's what I was walking into. So I didn't have expectations of glorious, glorious violence with one liners in a serious tone, but able to make fun of it. And yeah,
I
that,
was going to say, there's still glorious, glorious violence, no blood, with so many one-liners.
yeah, yeah. But it was the comedic tone that threw me off guard.
Okay. Okay. There's two casting notes before we dig into Arnold and the rest of the cast that I want to talk about. One, this is Art Carney's last movie.
Mm.
Art Carney was on The Honeymooners forever. He was the opposite of Jackie Gleason on The Honeymooners to show just one of the million cameos that were in this movie, like celebrities coming out the wazoo in this movie.
Yeah.
It's so good. And I know we'll get to Charles Dance in a minute to the Lannister, but he was not the first choice for his role.
Really fantastic job though.
Oh, he was so good, so good in the movie. But in that year, in 1993, the director, who has the director of this movie, John McTiernan, has such a great list of movies in the 90s and the 80s. He wanted to cast a villain from one of his previous films, but he wanted too much money. Can you guess what
Rickman?
villain He wanted Rickman.
Oh
He
God,
wanted
that would have been
Rickman for the role.
fucking amazing. Fucking
And
amazing if Rickman would have done it.
and while I was brushing up on this movie and reading the internet, I found out that Charles Dance found out that he got the role because Rickman wanted too much money and literally wore a t-shirt that said, "I'm cheaper than Alan Rickman" to set one day.
He's he has not aged since that movie because he looks old as shit in this movie.
he his hair is a little redder, but in general, and for those that don't recognize the name John McTiernan, just like, oh yeah, no, I know all his movies, right? For all those listeners who don't know, his 80s and 90s credits are as such: Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October, Medicine Man, which is an unrated Sean Connery movie, Last Action Hero. Then he jumps to Die Hard with a Vengeance, The Thomas Crown Affair with Pierce Brosnan, 13th Warrior with Banderas, the remake of Rollerball, Basic, which is a great Travolta movie, super underrated.
That's a contradictory statement right in itself, but
that,
Travolta.
Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, their first time back together since, coincidentally, Pulp Fiction. And he's in pre-production for something else, but that guy is pretty old now, so I don't know how much actual directing he's gonna do. But heavy hitter, like,
Yeah.
what an awesome. Just to say, you know, this is all I do. I make movies that people on podcasts really love.
I wish I would have known too that this was, well, maybe in my like 11-year-old self or 12-year-old self, I wouldn't have appreciated like, oh, this is the same director as Predator. Well, why do you make such a shitty movie? You know, I think that's what I would have thought. But so this, keep in mind, this is Dan talking about his 12-year-old self watching this movie. So why do we dig deeper into the characters and we'll kind of unfold and peel the layers back in the onion.
Oh, so many layers. So many. Where should we start? I don't know.
Jack Slater, now the action star. Yeah. So yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Detective Jack Slater fucking comes out of his, or stepping on cop cars with his cowboy boots and gator skin cowboy boots, and ready to kick ass, take names, but he's all out of paper, so he's just gonna kick ass. So that first scene, oh god, fucking hilarious. And just recently watching it, so a secret to you, I actually did watch this before you picked this particular movie. So I've watched it twice, probably in the past 2 months.
Ooh.
So, dude, it was like a brand new movie to me. So different from what I remember. And yeah, that first scene with Arnold, I watched it with my oldest son, and he started laughing as well too. So I think he appreciates more of the corniness and parody action of the movie than I did when I was almost twice his age. So kudos to my oldest boy.
He's got good taste in movies, obviously.
Eh.
I mean, if you like Last Action Hero, you're E&A in my book.
Of course, yeah.
I did enjoy that, the car chase at the beginning. That's just ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
and it just sets the tone for the ridiculousness of the entire movie.
Yeah,
right. The one-handed Desert Eagle firing, like even Arnold couldn't do that. Like, not a chance.
That recoil would just break your wrist.
Oh man, so much. But what about the premise? Let's rewind. Let's rewind to the guy. What's his name?
I don't know.
I'm looking for the guy who owned the theater.
Nick. Which, by the way,
yeah,
Robert Prosky, he's the only person that I will look at and just be like, that person's from Mrs. Doubtfire.
He is.
Besides Robin Williams, that's the only other person that I'll say he was in Mrs. Doubtfire.
That is a true statement, and that's what I wanted. Yeah. He was also in The Great Outdoors.
I never seen that movie. Never seen.
Oh, next retro rewind, we do the 80s. Guess what you're watching? Or, you know. Um, but I definitely enjoy him. He was also Grandpa Fred in Gremlins 2. He's had a lot of like random small roles. He was in Rudy the same year. The 1993 for this guy. Last Action Hero, Rudy, and Mrs. Doubtfire.
All bangers.
Just bang, bang, bang. And then he was the judge in the remake of Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah.
The 90s remake, the only good remake. But I always confuse him with the guy that pops out of the wall or pops out of the wall in The Wizard of Oz. He's always just such a happy guy and always, in all the small movies he's in. But
Yet another movie, The Wizard of Oz, another movie I have not seen. You know what? I'm sure they played it in grade school on like Christmas, the lead up to Christmas break. But do you think I watched it? No. I was probably drawing Marvel characters on loose leaf paper.
So you're telling me that in private boys high school they played The Wizard of Oz?
No. Grade school, man.
Okay.
Think they would do that? So funny story. Okay. Random alert, random alert. So I'm going to take you out just because you talked about movies in high school. So during one of my, I believe it was either biology or chemistry class. I want to say chemistry, whatever you take in senior year. Chemistry, sure, sounds good.
Jim?
Yeah, that too. There was that class specifically. The teacher got fired first semester because he was a good teacher, but no one respected him. And when you're in a private school full of boys that just don't give a fuck senior year, you're in for a rough time. But they replaced him with a couple different substitutes the second semester. One of them being a former captain, I believe, in the Marines. Former captain in the Marines, Captain Johnson, if you're out there, and we know that you are, and you're probably listening right now. But there was a time where he just let us bring in movies. And like, all right, it's Friday. You guys can just bring in movies. We'll watch whatever you want. Well, me, being the funny comedian guy that I am, wanted to bring in Girls Gone Wild, and we planned it to to have it. They'd start off with some other movie, and then they'd sneak in Girls Gone Wild, like 5 minutes in. And so,
wait, pause. You wanted to bring softcore porn?
No, I didn't want to. I thought it was going to be funny, so I did it. There's a difference.
Okay.
So I brought that in.
So two teachers got fired that year.
No, he stuck with for the rest of the year, so it was awesome. But he was just so funny and cool about it. So, anyways, slight diversion. Girls Gone Wild was on exhibition at the high school that I was at in senior year chemistry class. But on with the show.
There's a lot of testosterone in that room.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of chemistry. So we talked about Jack, but I want to talk about the premise and Austin O'Brien, or Danny, in this movie and his golden ticket. The golden ticket. It sounds familiar to me.
Very.
It seems like kind of a ripoff. I don't know.
Danny Madigan, I thought was super annoying when I first watched the movie. Now, I think he's hilarious. That he's just calling everything out as bullshit in movies, and he's just trying to point out the fact that, like, you guys are all fake. None of this stuff makes sense. You guys don't think that this is really convenient. Like, so I really love that sense of humor, realism, and just trying to shed light on the whole situation that you guys are a fucking movie. Why don't you realize it? Example A. And they just don't get it. They just don't get it.
Yeah, it's this was like only his second movie after The Lawnmower Man. But he was in that, and he did come back from Lawnmower Man 2 in 1996. But it was his second movie, which went way better than his third movie, Pre-Hysteria, with a bunch of stop motion action dinosaurs, where he finds dinosaur eggs and has baby dinosaurs.
That's rough.
Yeah, that guy's career, still going. Apparently, last acted in 2015. But
Still going in 2015. You realize it's 2022.
yeah, it's true. He did some. He was in My Girl too. The Annie
yes, he
Clump,
was.
the Annie Clumpsy vehicle. He was replacing dead Macaulay Culkin.
Yes. Who was
which-
almost legally dead at that particular point in time. So
Was he? In
he was
92?
probably into some shit. I don't know. He was probably
I don't
doing
know.
drugs.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I don't mind his performance in this movie, but I would have loved to have seen Macaulay Culkin instead of him.
Could have been Ghost Part 2 with the cast of My Girl.
Dude, the cast of My Girl was not shitty. Dan Aykroyd.
Dude, you just have a hard on for Dan Aykroyd.
I love me some Dan Aykroyd. Not gonna lie, dude. So he gets a golden ticket, and he's got a. How do you feel about the Nick and Danny relationship? Is that weird? That an old man lets you in the theater? How does the old man? Did he own the theater, or he just worked there? Like he was the phantom of the theater. The premise at the beginning of the movie kind of threw me off because it was like a guarded single mom thing, and he was getting mugged going to the theater. Go to the theater during the day, you dumbass. Nobody starts a movie before 4:00.
It was during the day. It was at like 8:30 or 9:30 in the morning because he went there before school. So it was during the day. But yes, it is weird. But I never thought of that as a weird relationship when I was younger. Okay. So is that why so many people just got fucked up in the head because things are normal in movies like that? I'll hang out with a 60-year-old projectionist. Who tells me to come back at midnight. Bring something. And I was like, what? Get the fuck out of here.
Houdini gave me his golden ticket.
Oh my gosh.
I was groomed by Houdini. Yeah. The Houdini reference, completely out of nowhere. I have no idea where that came from. I don't know that motion pictures were a big thing when Houdini was touring, but I also don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird. But either way, I got past it, and now he's in the movie.
Yeah.
And he's riding in the back of Schwarzenegger's car.
Yeah. The action at this point on the rewatches, I'm into it, and I'm eating it all up. I was like, this is fucking hilarious. I can't believe I didn't like this when I was younger. And I understand now because I was going in with a perception that Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to kick ass, but he's going to be like a badass, not some type of comedic relief type of guy. This is where it's, Last Action Hero kind of blends the whole what action heroes are now, if that makes sense, because it's not just guns, muscles, and bitches, right? It's not something where it's like, yeah, he's just going to get laid anytime, and he's going to shoot guns, and he's not going to have a scratch on him. He blends like the comedic effort, but also has the sad story about his son, so it humanizes him more. Where before, you don't have that story. If you're an action hero in the 80s or 90s, or early 90s, I should say, you're a badass motherfucker that has no emotional ties to anybody. And if one of your family members got killed, you would shed a single tear, and then it would be a hail of bullets across the screen for at least 80 minutes.
I don't know. I could think of a few. The 90s was like the evolution of the action hero, right?
Evolving, right, exactly. But 80s, it was flat out kick ass, take names, and sleep with the female lead. That's what it was.
When did Lethal Weapon come out?
87, maybe?
I think Mel Gibson's character in Lethal Weapon was that, he had the dead wife and he
True. Yeah.
he did karate and he had a dog and
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, like historically going up to that point. So even during like 70s into 80s, it was just stone cold. You
it
got
was,
Clint Eastwood as
yeah.
how many times as the same character in the spaghetti westerns, and Arnold really having no attachments. I mean, he was a cyborg in two
I
movies.
think it
So.
literally, this movie was to make fun of Arnold.
Oh
And
yeah,
the
for
fact
sure.
that he had no depth in any of these movies, and is such an amazing call out. And then the movies after this that we talked about, True Lies, Eraser, they added more depth to his characters.
Oh yeah.
And it could have been as it hopefully was a result of this amazing 1993 just you know time changer, right? This just such a good bad movie.
What did you think of the friendship between Danny Madigan and Jack Slater?
It didn't make sense.
It did or did not?
It did not make sense. Like, it was as weird as Nicolas Cage's kid moving in with John Travolta at the end of Face Off. Face rake and I accept you. Like that, huh? Like, there's some obvious trauma there that they're both ignoring and just like, oh, he's like my little son. It works very well.
So I was actually okay with it. I understood it a little bit more this time around because Slater's in denial that he is this fake paper champ. Really, that's what he is. And when Danny starts letting him know that, like, your badassery is 100% fiction, it isn't until the point that Arnold starts to realize, like when he punches through that window, it's like, oh, that hurt, oh, my hand. So yeah, that's where he's like, oh no, this is legit and my feelings are hurt. And so that's when he starts to bond with his mom and talks with his mom all night.
Yeah. They
So
talk with the penis.
we should just do like the whole episode in Schwarzenegger voice.
Just closing it out with Arnold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody stopped listening when we said we're going to talk about Last Action Hero, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
But no, I mean, I thought that it was probably the most realistic. It was probably even more realistic than Terminator 2, when him and John Connor bond. Believe me, I love that movie and I love the fact that they have the bond, but I think this one makes a little bit more sense just because of this guy in his head is the shit. He is untouchable, branded unfuckable. It's just so good in the sense that he is an action star and he gets a dose of reality. And then at the end of the movie, after he gets shot up and everything, he's like, yeah, I need people like you to be out there and believe in me. And that was like, oh, that's a touching moment between Danny Madigan and Detective Jack Slater.
Mm. Mm. So, any other of the cast stick out to you as we kind of move through this? Like,
there's two that I want to get out of the way. So number one is Lieutenant Decker. Hilarious that this guy just fucking screams every minute that he's on screen. It's just so funny, and it's so typical of the police captains or lieutenants back in the day, where it's like there's always a captain that's going to just yell at their subordinates and they're just going to give them shit the entire time. And he never stops until the very end. And so I just love that fact, and them making fun of it the entire movie was hilarious to me. What were your thoughts on him?
I thought the exact same thing. He reminded me exactly of the captain in in Beverly Hills Cop. And when I went to look up if he was in Beverly Hills Cop, he was not, but he was in Loaded Weapon 1. So this was his second police spoof captain role of 1993.
Great movie, by the way. Loaded Weapon 1. Fantastic.
Oh, Emilio.
So you brought up a funny point because it made me think of another movie from the 90s. And it was from the movie So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Mike Myers.
Yeah. And the person who played the police captain in that, very well-known actor, and he was freaking hilarious. Oh God, Alan Arkin, you know him from so many different movies, and it's just one of those things where he plays the sensitive captain, and Anthony LaPaglia is like, why don't you just be like one of those other captains from the TV shows where they just yell at you and you give people shit for no. And so he does a couple scenes like that. But anyways, another movie, but another 90s nostalgic hit for me personally. But the yelling police captain, I love it. I love it.
I can't complain about that. I can't complain about it. I love it.
What about my second person that I want to talk about? Speaking of constant yelling, but Bridget Wilson Sampras as Whitney Slater, Jack's daughter.
Mrs. Veronica Vaughn.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that it's one of her like 2 movies because she married Pete Sampras, and that was it.
You forget the movie that you said was comparable to Enter the Dragon, Mortal Kombat. She played Sonya Blade.
Sonya Blade. She was 100% Sonya Blade.
She sucked as Sonya Blade, man.
That whole movie was terrible.
No, the movie was good for the time, but her as Sonya Blade sucked. Sandra Hess in the second Mortal Kombat, way better.
I would say that Bridget Wilson did a great job, and I'm not even mad at her.
Bridget Wilson Sampras, put some respect on her name and Pete Sampras' name.
Oh, sorry. Well, just so you know, the Mortal Kombat 11 that came out in 2019, guess who voiced Sonya Blade?
Couldn't tell you because I never saw.
That'd be Bridget Wilson Sampras.
Really?
Yeah, she's back.
So wait, when you say Mortal Kombat 11, the video game?
The video game. She voiced the character in the video game.
That character, I found it so funny that she just screamed like the helpless victim as they were
she's just beating the living shit out of those guys.
Yeah.
She has like a hero fight, essentially, right?
Yeah.
All the same things fall in her way as Arnold, except she gets a hit and the gun goes flying. But it conveniently is there when Arnold needs to take a dude out, even though he gets shot in the chest and does the old Clint Eastwood, never leave home without it.
Yeah. Or Michael Keaton in Batman.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I loved her as a character, and the fact that she pulls up and she crashes through the fence after Jack's in the tar pit, and she's like, oh, I thought you might need some clothes. Like, what? No one finds this convenient?
Well, before that, he says, yeah, tar normally doesn't just wipe off of people.
Yeah. I loved every little cheesy
the tar
line.
Pit scene when he falls in and you can actively see the area they've carved out of whatever practical tar pit they built somewhere where the water moves and the rest of the water doesn't because it's not water or tar, and he just swims out. And then randomly there's some hand towels for him to wipe his face.
That is funny.
That is just a microcosm of the entire movie. It is bad punnage to the next. The whole premise of that scene is the flagellant guy's got one more left to go. And all the Italians have guns on the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we having a roof funeral?
It wouldn't be, I don't think it would be as funny if Danny doesn't call out all of the stupidity, like events that just, it's just one of those things where he needs to point it out. Like, this is ridiculous. Don't you, as an audience, see this ridiculous as well too?
No. And then you go to the ridiculousness is in all of the cameos too.
Oh my
Sharon
gosh,
Stone's in this movie. Jean-Claude Van Damme's in this movie. Danny DeVito voices the cat detective in the movie. There's a superimposed Humphrey Bogart, and the T-1000 comes out of the police station while they're going in. He's like, the hell? It's such a good movie. It's so many great cameos. Who's the mayor? Tina Turner. That's right.
I forgot about that cameo when I saw it. I was like, holy shit, there's so many people in this movie. And
It's obscene.
I bet that they were just so disappointed at the reception of this movie too, because like it really was good. But
it's the idiocy of releasing it the week after Jurassic Park. Nothing. It's like releasing a movie the week after Endgame. Do you remember what came out the week after Endgame? Nobody does.
True.
Nobody. There's a movie that I want to watch that came out this year with Jamie Lee Curtis that came out the week after a Marvel movie, and it was buried. I'll watch it sometime at home this year when it hits streaming or something, but it was supposedly amazing and funny.
It's supposed to be the best multiverse movie out there. So,
but it came out like the week after Doctor Strange or the week before or something. It just was in nobody's going to the theater. They're only going for Marvel movies, and you release something of value and nobody goes to see it.
It's an A24 movie too. So A24 is making like a big jump because they're just cranking out releases left and right. And before they were just like the indie studio that like we're good for like a movie a year. And then now they're just like coming out with just so many different hits and really successive releases one after another. And I don't know what their schedule is, but they've got pretty solid movies. So good for A24. Because there was a heap of horse shit before that. So
yeah, maybe we'll do an A24 episode.
I'm good with that.
But yeah, I really do like in reviewing this movie, it just reminded me of how much I enjoyed it. How much I enjoyed the toys and just how great it just kept getting because of the ridiculousness that they wanted to infuse. There wasn't like one action scene at the beginning and one at the end. It was just everywhere at 11, like an over the top 11 that was just so great. The part where he plays chicken with everybody, like it's so good. It's so good. There's definitely a lot of good movie tropes in this. A little bit of toxic masculinity, celebrities everywhere. My favorite and most memorable celebrity cameo, there was not the real person there, but you've called it out in your background. As Danny's trying to convince him that he's an actor, they go to the video store because he tells him he's in Terminator and Stallone.
Oh my
You were so good in that movie. It was great.
It's just, what could have been if that was the case. Like I don't know if you've seen any like some of the deep fakes that have happened where they remake Stallone in some of the Schwarzenegger scenes. It's so fucking realistic. I mean, I would almost just pay money to watch a movie with that being redone where Schwarzenegger is swapped with Stallone or vice versa. I would love to see a Demolition Man with Schwarzenegger superimposed into it. It'd be fantastic. Fantastic. Oh, Taco Bell, the three seashells. Oh, my ass is dirty. Oh.
Let's be honest. Demolition Man, there's one person. If I had to pick one character in Demolition Man to replace with a different person,
Rob Schneider.
No. Wesley Snipes would be replaced with Samuel L. Jackson, and that movie would be 1,000,000 times better. 1,000,000.
I liked Wesley Snipes in that movie.
I like Sylvester Stallone in that movie. Nobody liked Sandra Bullock in that movie.
Yeah.
Also, Dennis Leary. Is that accurate? I believe.
Yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
Dennis Leary's in it. Yeah, I mean, he was a minor character in it, but Dennis Leary was big in the '90s, man.
Well, I mean, you only want Schwarzenegger in there because they used the same death from Terminator 2.
Because Arnold Schwarzenegger is the best,
Hmm.
and he could do anything that Stallone did, with the exception of Rocky. With the exception of Rocky, I don't know of any other movie. Maybe Over the Top. I would not want to see Schwarzenegger in Over the Top, but I don't know.
Oh, so what Schwarzenegger movie would you put Stallone in?
None, because every Schwarzenegger movie is perfect. I would go
Hmm.
towards. You know what? I would put Stallone in End of Days or The Sixth Day. You know, the shitty Schwarzenegger movies. That's what I would do. I've got such a high regard for Schwarzenegger, and you know, Stallone. He had good movies, but I had my preference. I was locked in that mentality of I will either like A or B. You know, that's Schwarzenegger all the way for me.
I appreciate both. I think I appreciate Schwarzenegger in the 80s and Stallone in the 70s, and then late in the 90s, more Stallone than Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah.
You know, after Junior, I needed a break.
I
Though
mean,
I do love him
even
with Danny DeVito, but 80s, in the 80s, I have to go Schwarzenegger. I never really got
anything.
into Rambo.
I was okay with Rambo. So really, 2000 and up, Stallone owned Schwarzenegger. I mean, he was serving as governor for a good chunk of those years,
Yeah,
so 7 years. But um,
he was
I
a
mean,
Kennedy. He was busy.
yeah, Expendables. You had the
Schwarzenegger was in
Rocky.
Expendables.
Yeah, but you know,
You're
it's
talking like
heat of
Rocky Balboa and Creed and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
no,
mean,
the bookends to the Rocky series have been really good.
speaking of Rocky, what do you think about the whole Drago series spinoff or Drago spinoff, not
It
series?
depends how it's written. The reason those Rocky movies were so good is because Stallone is a really good writer. Like nobody gives the guy credit. He is an exceptional screenwriter. He wrote and did the choreography for those movies. They invented a choreography style for those movies based on Stallone. Stallone came up with it. Everybody thinks he's punchy. He's not punchy. He is really good at that. And I think it's a money grab. But I think Creed 3 is a money grab.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
wasn't asking for it.
Michael B. Jordan's gonna. I think Creed 2, when they're training in the desert, was on dirt. Like that was a little much for me. Like Creed, I got. Creed 2 was okay, but I mean now they're gonna make Rocky 5 again, and they're gonna have to retcon it.
I didn't even really like Creed Adonis in that movie. It was I wanted more of Drago's story. That was my thing.
That's
It's
what
like
you're gonna
that's
get now, buddy.
maybe we'll see. We'll see if that actually happens.
I want to see if they get Brigitte Nielsen back. That dumpster fire.
Why? Yeah.
She's the mommy. Um,
Yeah.
I don't mind Dolph Lundgren, but I don't like his acting.
Yeah. Not the best
So that'll
actor.
be one that I watch when it comes. Like, it'll be on streaming and I'll watch it. But like Creed, I was stoked because Stallone was in it. You can't do that without Stallone. Just like you can't do Last Action Hero without Arnold and all of Arnold's previous movies because it makes it so much better. And talk about the Arnold isms in this, right? Am I the only person that still thinks it's hilarious that they made I'll Be Back a thing in this? And we're like, yeah, you always say that.
Yeah, of course. What's funny? It was, um, but when I was younger, man, I was not having a good time. I wanted to see legit bona fide ass kicking, and I just saw slapstick comedy. That's what I saw, and I
But
was
what
just
about
like
the
still
Ripper?
bummed.
The Ripper was kind of scary. It's a weird guy in a raincoat and a metal,
Yeah.
surprisingly non-rusted metal shirt.
It takes a lot for me to be scared. And so, yeah, that character wasn't scary to me. Who was scary was Death. And that was
Oh,
Magneto, right? That was Ian
it
McClellan.
was Sir Ian McKellen. Yes.
Yeah, that was scary. And he can, once again, he has not aged a day because he still looks old as shit in this movie.
I don't know. The Ripper freaked me out as a kid because of the big axe and stuff. Like I was like, man, kind of weird looking, kind of creepy.
To me, that was like one of the things about horror movies and horror movies in air quotes. They always had the big weapon, and so I was just like, is this really scary? And and even my 12-year-old brain can put together that there is no threat here. There's no threat. He's gonna kick this person's ass, no problem. And so that's why I also didn't like it
But then he murdered his kid.
after the fact, you know, after the fact.
What about the double cross in this movie, where dude double crosses and he murders his uncle, right? It was uncle, right?
Anthony Quinn, such a moron, and Tywin Lannister as he's just so just beside himself and pissed off that he has to deal with this moron. Like I thought it was hilarious, and so it was fun. I was completely fine with it. I didn't really, watching it the second and third time, I was thinking like, oh yeah, yeah, double cross, but I didn't view it as like a pivotal moment of the movie. I just thought of it as here's another stop on the ride. It wasn't like, whoa,
Yeah,
this is groundbreaking.
it was movie tropish. But what about F. Murray Abraham, where he keeps telling Arnold, "Don't trust him. He killed Mozart."
Oh yeah. No, that was good. Yeah, that I did enjoy that. But thinking about it and rewatching it now, it's such a quick turnaround. So that double cross is just like, oh no, he's supposed to be his friend and he's screwing him over. And then pop, all right, you're good. Like, all right, on to the next scene. Once again, another stop on the ride. Not even a major pit stop, not even sightseeing. It's just take a moment to rest, on with the story.
Yeah, this movie moves quickly, even though it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. It feels like it's 90 minutes.
It's a long movie.
It's long. Yeah, it gets they're doing it again. They're doing it again. I thought the ending flourished well though, like flashed strong.
Yeah.
And they did give you the most ridiculous part of this movie may not have been the actual movie, but the preview for the new Schwarzenegger as Hamlet movie, which I can't not let us talk about. Like I can't not talk about that. That and Professor Turo Tanaka. I can't not talk about those two things before we get to the ending.
Go for it. By all means, go.
Schwarzenegger doing Hamlet with the cigar and the automatic weapon. I mean, it speaks for itself. I'm guessing you could YouTube Schwarzenegger Hamlet and just watch the preview for a fake movie in a fake movie about a fake movie. It's so Inception, but it was so good.
It was. But this is another example of how Hollywood just recycles stuff. Is that Tropic Thunder did that as well too, even better though. And so I love the fact that like, oh, this is hilarious because I completely forgot about the whole Hamlet.
Yeah, me too.
Trailer in this, but it automatically made me think of Tropic Thunder and appreciated Tropic Thunder even more because it was better because it was a montage of those all within.
That is such an underrated movie. Tropic Thunder. Like,
I mean, I think it gets all the respect and love that it deserves.
I don't know that the mainstream loves it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I think
it is shocking how much has gotten away with in that movie.
Yeah.
It is shocking. Tropic Thunder, like Last Action Hero, they could reboot that in 2022. They could make this movie again. There may not be as many like scantily clad women running around, but they
Sure.
could make this movie again. They just make it like you fall into a phone or something, right? Like I don't know if they make it in a theater, but they could make this movie again. You ain't making Tropic Thunder again. And that was just 2008. That
Yeah.
was not that long ago. But holy shit, that movie's great.
It is. It is. And ending of this movie was good. You know, you had the nice feel good moment for Danny as he is able to go back home and he does what he loves to do, and that's watch Jack Slater and Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And yeah, I thought that was they nailed the ending for it, so that's for sure.
What do you think about the fact that he ran into Arnold and they had an Arnold on Arnold moment and
Love it.
Arnold tried to recruit him to open mini malls?
Yeah, love it because he's not immune to making fun of himself, and yeah, so I was completely down for it. I wish they would have had more of those ridiculous celebrity run-in cameos because I don't know. I just like the whole breaking the fourth wall irony type of thing. You know, anything where it's so ridiculous that you just end up laughing about it. And yeah, maybe that's why I like movies like Free Guy and stuff like that because there's always a whole bunch of ridiculous cameos and celebrities that'll just pop up for no reason.
I'm super glad I picked this movie just because of your positive reaction to it. Uh, so I got to ask now, right after we've talked through most of the movie, um, it seems like you could do this all day. Will you be back?
I cannot do this all day. I like it a whole lot more, but I cannot do this movie all day. The reasoning as to why is because just like revenge is a dish best served cold, Arnold Schwarzenegger movies are a movie that needs to have violence, blood, gore in a non-comedic effect. That just is me in my opinion.
Hmm.
And so I do like this movie probably like 60% more than I did when I first watched because I freaking hated it. I trashed it. I said it sucked. I have not watched it since I was 12 years old. So it's been a long time. And I watched it twice in the past couple months. So that's a lot of progress in my eyes. But to be fair, I cannot do this all day.
I absolutely can do this all day because comedic Schwarzenegger is my favorite Schwarzenegger. Uh, True Lies, Twins, Kindergarten Cop. These are my favorite Schwarzenegger movies, along with Last Action Hero.
I love Kindergarten Cop, but Twins, that I haven't seen that. I tried watching it recently, but I was okay with stopping after like 20 minutes. Um, but yeah, I like, Arnold Schwarzenegger is my action hero. I don't think there's anyone that is in that same iconic status level now, with the exception of maybe The Rock. But even then, he does the whole mixing and matching of the genres as well. So that's one of the things that I don't necessarily like. So that maybe the reason why I liked Kindergarten Cop is because it didn't blend a whole lot of action with his comedy. Yeah, there's a few shotgun scenes, but other than that, that was all comedy. The little kids stole the show, and Schwarzenegger and his partner were just like the adults in everything. But the kids stole the show, and Schwarzenegger and his interactions with them was a nice change of pace for him. So he picked a good movie and a good script, and Dolph Lundgren followed it up about 20, 30 years later, and I haven't finished it yet, so I'll let you know when I do.
I don't. That's like Blues Brothers 2000. It doesn't exist to me. And I'm proud of you for giving Pamela Reed her due. Just
She's
Pamela
she's
Reed is amazing in that movie.
she's so good in that. Yeah, love that. But yeah, so you can do it all day, huh?
I do. I like this movie. It just every time I watch it, it puts a smile on my face.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, like I said, I like it a whole lot better more, or a whole lot better now. I like a whole lot better now, but I think that is a nice little cap on the 90's.
I mean, we gave them the drama, we gave them the suspense, the recreational drug use, and they got to find out about Marcellus Wallace, and then we gave them all of the laughing Terminator.
I'm sorry we had to end the 90's like that. And I was sorry that Schwarzenegger had to go through that. But you know what? Good movie, underrated movie. Check it out. But maybe not check it out all day.
Hmm.
But that will wrap up today's episode of Retro Rewind 90's edition. I'm Dan, the part-time adventurer. That's Mark, the resident Jedi.
Like and subscribe. Suggestions, messages, thoughts on what we should do next. You'll get that alert every Monday to watch the new episode if you just subscribe. And if you really don't like what we're doing, go ahead and hit the dislike button, but hit it twice just so we know you're serious.
Until next time, we'll be back.